Hello fellow romance book lovers, thanks for stopping by for today's video. Today's video is on the book My Darling Arrow by Saffron A. I have done a few videos on her books now. I read one or two others that was before I had my channel, and I always mean to go back, especially when I really like an author, and go back and do videos on those books, but I feel like to do that I need to do a reread, and my schedule just has not permitted because it's been so full and so busy, which has been wonderful because I think it's a really great time to be a reader. There's so much out there to choose from. I adore Saffron's books. I know that she's a little unconventional. She writes stories that would be, I guess, for some people considered taboo stories. But the way she writes them and the voices that she gives her characters, to me, they don't ever really feel that way. And who's to say, oh, sorry, Macy is of course laying at my feet and is getting comfortable, so therefore making noise. Whoever is to say what's taboo to one person or another, her books, I guess, yes, are considered that way, but to me, they're just unconventional love stories. And I really do believe that people find each other when they're supposed to find each other, people come into each other's lives when they're supposed to come into each other's lives. So if that's considered taboo because it's a doctor and a patient, or a teacher and a student, or whatever, in My Darling Arrow's case, it's sister's boyfriend type of story. So to each its own. I'm a fan. Saffron's stories are always so rich and full of emotion and vulnerability and realness, and the way she develops her characters, they just like grab me and then don't let me go until the book is over. And even then, especially with this one, I don't think it's ever going to let my heart go. I'm always going to have a special place in my heart for Salem and Arrow. A little background about the characters. Salem is 18, I believe. She has been sent to a reform school for girls. She got into a little bit of trouble, and her guardian is the head of the reform school, and she says, you know what, you need some discipline. The reform school is what you think it is. It provides discipline, schedule, therapy, stuff like that. Salem has an older sister, and then their mother died. They don't talk a lot about that except to explain that after their mom died, they went to live with Leah, who assumed guardianship of them, which was their mom's really good friend, and her son Arrow. Arrow is 5 years older than Salem and the same age as Sarah. It was very sweet the first time that Salem sees Arrow and meets him. And she was 10, he was 15. It's one of the very first things we read about in the book. She's so upset and so scared, and she's sitting in a room in their house with a blanket wrapped around her. You know, her mom just died. She got shipped off to a new place, with her, and she's lost. And in walks Arrow, who is this teenage, handsome, she says he's like the sun with his golden, hair and his blue eyes. And she's immediately struck, literally struck by an arrow. And that set her up for the next many years of being in love with him. And at that age, is it puppy love? Is it a first crush? Whatever, it sticks with her. Arrow, like I said, is 5 years older. We learn a lot about him as the book goes on. My heart was, it was a little hard to like him. And we knew this because I'm in Saffron's reader group, and she mentioned a few times that he's such a jerk. And he kind of is. No, not kind of, he is. So, but the way she peels back his layers, he never really stops being a jerk, but you like him. You can't help it. And writes about that as soon as she saw him and was so struck by him and fell in love, she basically watched her sister and him look at each other, and that was it for them. And they started falling in love and having a relationship, and how Leah feels about that. She didn't necessarily embrace their relationship, but she understood that they had an attraction, which turned into love, which turned into them being each other's person. When the book starts, Arrow is coming back in town. Salem is, I think, at school, and she realizes everyone's tittering and talking, and she comes to find out that it's because Arrow is back in town. He has moved to LA. I believe that the town is on the East Coast that Saffron is talking about, where they live, where the school is. And he's left town with Sarah to go live his dream, which is to be a professional soccer player. It's his legacy. His father was a very successful professional soccer player and died young. So Leah has focused all of her effort into making sure that Arrow lives the legacy that his father was basically cut short of. And all of that becomes a whole part of the story. All of a sudden, like I said, Salem hears people talking at school and realizes Arrow's coming back in town, and she's like, but why? Why is he coming back? They're supposed to get married. Why? What is going on? She's taken aback by it, and she's worried about it. I adored the way Saffron wrote this book. I think Salem is one of my favorite characters that she's ever written. There is a sweetness about her. There is a vulnerability. There's a naivete about her. But yet also, she has this enormous, enormous heart. And she wears it on her sleeve, but doesn't let people trample on it. She doesn't let people take advantage of her. She's very smart in how she acts about things. I loved how Saffron wrote from Salem's perspective. At first it was, and I hope I can describe this correctly, at first it was kind of, I didn't know if I was going to connect with her. She seemed kind of immature. She seemed like we got diarrhea of the mouth with her. We got all of her thoughts. The way she writes it, it's written like you're literally in Salem's head, hearing every thought that she has, every feeling, every emotion. And I was like, oh, geez, I don't know if I can do this. But then I realized as the pages went on very quickly that she was literally giving us everything of Salem, like Salem gives everything of herself. She's very reserved, except for she's one of those people, you have that friend who's like really quiet when you're in a group of people and is happy to take, be back here, whereas there's people that always want to be in front. That's Salem back there. And when you spend one-on-one time with that girl back there, she's able to open up to you in a way that's better in a small group of people or just one-on-one. Kind of like describing myself a little bit. Interesting. Anyway, that's the way Salem is. That she does not want to stick out like a sore thumb. She does not want to put herself out there. There is nothing remarkable, she thinks, about herself. So she is happy to be back behind everybody watching what's going on. She forges beautiful friendships with a group of girls that seem to be just like her, which I cannot wait to read more about. And we know that those are going to be the next books. So that's super exciting. So once you get to know Salem, and Saffron gives us Salem there for us to embrace. It was amazing. I loved her. And on the flip side of that, Arrow is very closed off. He's very, like I said, he's kind of a jerk. But Saffron peels back his layers like one by one in how the relationship develops between Salem and him. I just loved how she wrote this book. We know, because we know Salem so well, that she never wants to come between, and she has never voiced her feelings for Sarah and Arrow. She has never, ever, ever said anything, done anything. That's how she loves. She never wants to be the villain, because that would break her sister's heart. That would upset the apple cart. She knows that Arrow and Sarah love each other, and she loves them enough to keep her feelings to herself for years and years and years and years. And to me, that was so endearing, because it was so organic to the character learning about on these pages, that she has them and their relationship up on this pedestal, and she had to live in the same house with them and watch them fall in love in front of her while she's falling in love with Arrow, and she never said anything. This is how she describes watching Sarah and Arrow when they meet. I wish I had. I really, really wish I had said something, because when the moment passed, I never got the chance to tell him, because in a split second, everything changed. The whole course of my life, and his too, because just then my sister walked in, Sarah, and he turned to look at her, and he's never looked away. He hasn't looked away from her since that moment. So basically, in the last 8 years that I've known him, he's only looked at me with his full focus that one time. Since then, his focus has been on my sister, the love of his life. And then she goes on to say a little bit later, I don't think I have any role except to be the villain in their love story. So that's where I'm saying that she explains that she would never step in and say anything, because if she did, it would completely change everything, and she will not be the villain. She loves them enough to keep her mouth shut. Broke my heart. After he comes back into town, she sneaks out and goes to a bar with her friends. Again, not following the rules. She is a rule breaker, which is a big theme in the book. Salem and her friends go to a local bar on a Friday night. They sneak out, and lo and behold, who's there but Arrow? And she watches him in a situation where she's like, what are you doing? Why are you doing that? Where is my sister? If you're engaged to my sister, you should not be doing that. And she's got fire in her, let me tell you. So she walks right up to him and she's like, hello, what are you doing? And he looks at her, and she can tell that something's wrong. And talk about not ever wanting to disrupt anything. She disrupts it. She is unapologetic about interrupting him and lets him know, gives it to him, really. And something happens that surprises her, and she's like, okay, wait a minute, what's going on here? And this is what she says. Finally, I shake my head. Enough. Enough. I frown at him, and another surprising thing happens. A shocking thing. He smirks at me. At me! After 8 years, after 8 effing years, I finally get what I've been wishing for. His smirk. And my stupid effing heart can't handle it. My stupid effing heart swells and swells in my chest until it's aching. And I know it's a rather drastic reaction to a simple smirk, and people might call me crazy. But they don't know. They've never been in my position. They don't know what it feels like when a guy you've loved for 8 years, who loves someone else, smirks at you, and his eyes shine because of it. You lose your breath, you lose your sense, you lose all your goddamn goodness, and almost tell him that you want him. But somehow I pull myself back. Their interactions after that become quite interesting. Arrow's life is unraveling. The life that he has been groomed to have, the person that he is groomed to be, the life that he thought he was living, the rug gets pulled out from underneath him and he's lost. And this is where the book became something more for me. Arrow becomes this character who nothing in his life is what it seemed. And everything that he built his life on maybe wasn't for him. But he didn't know that because he had somebody telling him all the time, this is what you have to do. This is what you have to be. So he became that until somebody does something to him that he could not fathom happening to him ever. I felt really bad for him, and that was a little hard sometimes because he was such a jerk sometimes. Like I've said a bunch of times, I really do believe people come into your life for a reason. And in Salem and Arrow's story, he looked at her for a reason that night. Salem had the strength and the love for him at a time where he had zero strength and zero worthiness in himself. He's feeling that way. And she gives it to him so freely. There's not much dialogue between the two of them. It's a lot of emotion and action. And I thought that was kind of funny when I thought about it, but they don't talk a lot. And I'm not saying that they're like getting it on all the time, because of course there's those moments. Not really a spoiler. You know, we assume that there's going to be intimate moments in the books we read. And there is a lot of that. And also, can I mention, they are dirty birds. They are dirty talkers, and they have a certain thing that gets them both going. I was just like, okay, am I blushing reading this? Because, oh my gosh. Wow. Anyway, the way that Salem loves him and forces him to look at things in his life and gives him strength when he has none, I fell in love with her for that. I just adored her. They communicate in a way that might not be through so many words, but I felt in my heart. You feel Salem's love. You feel Arrow's torture. You feel when they're in sync. You feel that. And you believe that they are supposed to be together. I became so invested in them. And I really worried and wondered, oh my gosh, how is this going to turn out? Because Arrow needs to get his shit together. And I didn't know if he was capable. I wondered if Salem's love would be enough for him. And this is something that she says. She was really hoping that it was. For the past 8 years, I've been living in this fear that one day my love will make me do the unthinkable. My doomed love will make me so desperate, so dangerous, that I will try to get him, grab him, and keep him for myself. But now I know that I would never have done that, because in this moment when he's hurting, I'm hurting. When his pain makes his jaw clench, my insides clench. When his anguish burns his eyes, my skin feels it. In this moment, I can see everything clearly. I can see that I never would have made a play for him. I never would have tried to wreck his relationship so he could be mine. Even my attempt to kiss him on the bridge wasn't born out of malice or because I wanted to steal him away. It was born out of pure, overwhelming love. A love I didn't want to fall in, but I did anyway. I didn't do it to hurt my sister. I fell in love with him like dead leaves fall from the branch of a tree and rain falls from a swollen cloud. I fell in love with him like tears fall when you're sad and like blood oozes out of your skin when you step on broken glass. It was natural. So it's natural for me to heal his pain, or at least put a balm on it. Love him when he can't love himself and thinks he's a failure. See how beautiful it, first of all, how beautiful does Saffron write that? But don't you feel her? Can't you just see her essence right there on the pages? Ah, I loved it. There's a moment in chapter 25, and I was going to read it to you, but I feel like it might kind of be a spoiler, so I'm not going to. But I at least wanted to mention it in the video that, I guess it's kind of, I'm being like a little bit of a tease, sorry. But chapter 25 made me cry. And it's from Arrow's perspective. We get both of their perspectives in the book. Because Arrow was finally at a place where I trusted him. I didn't trust him throughout any of the book. That's okay, right? Because I felt very protective of Salem the whole time. And I didn't know if Saffron was going to give us a happily ever after with them. And if she did, was I going to be happy with the happily ever after? But when I read chapter 25, that's when I knew that I had come full circle with him. And I cried. Oh my gosh, I'm getting teary about it now. I cried in this chapter with what he says about Salem. And so when you read the book, make sure you pay close attention to that time, because the way Saffron wrote it was exactly what I needed, and I knew that I would be okay with what happened after that. Let me know if you have read My Darling Arrow or any of her other books and which one is your favorite. I would love for you to check out my other videos on the other books of hers that I've done. They will be down in the description box. And I also always put the link to the book in the description box. So if you want to grab the book, the link will be down there as well. If you're new and this is your first video that you've seen of mine, thank you for clicking on it. I welcome you to subscribe and also give the video a thumbs up. In doing that, you will be notified when I upload a new video, and it also helps that this video get shown to more people on YouTube. So thank you. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys. I'll see you soon. Bye.